Welcome to Outlaw Woodworking. Today we're going to take a look at the mess that's underneath my router lift. And the dust that accumulates underneath there is just too much. So what we're going to do is we're going to design and build a dust collection system underneath my router lift. And I kind of had this plan all along. So right now we'll get it all cleaned up. And I want to put this switch inside the cabinet also. So we're going to measure it up and figure out our dimensions of the box, and then we're going to start cutting it. And I really need to get an outfeed table for this. I actually want a bigger table saw, but this is what I got right now. So I'm not sure what that big blotchy light is in the left hand corner, but maybe I'll figure out how to crop that out. Anyway, yeah, I proceed to get these pieces cut, and they this table saw actually, for a small table saw, cuts really well. Um, I have had no problems with it except for it's really not good for cutting anything big. It's too hard to deal with big sheets, so I usually use my track saw to cut anything big. Um, And anyway, here I'm cutting the base of the router cabinet, and always the dust collection on this thing actually is pretty good. I'm using the dust collection machine, and it's hooked up straight to the saw, and it works pretty good. Anyway, let's get this thing fit in there, and yeah, first I need to do pocket hole. I'm gonna put pocket holes in this thing to make it easier to install. And I love the pocket hole jig. It's really easy to work with, and it makes for a nice tight joint. I didn't glue any of this because I really wasn't sure if I was gonna, if I might change it in the future. Here I clean it all out first, and then start mounting the cabinet. The these little jacks, I use these for installing cabinets. Like when I'm all by myself and I get to install an overhead cabinet, I'll set it on the deck, the counter, and then I set the upper cabinet right on it and jack it up to the height, and it works out really well. So for this little situation, it was actually perfect. It was almost the perfect size without even jacking it up. Um, but I ended up raising it just a little bit, and then using the pocket screws to screw it all in. It Yeah, it worked out really well, and the dimensions came out perfect, and you could. It was just enough room to lower it all the way down and raise it all the way up. So here I'm going to go and I'm going to cut the face of the dust collection box, and yeah, hook up my dust right or dust what do you call that thing? Yeah, dust collection hose. And I'm not sponsored by them, by the way. Anyway, I cut this little sheet, and yeah, get this thing rolling. And um, I like this birch plywood. I don't know why. It's expensive, man. It's like $56 a sheet, but it's pretty nice plywood. I've been trying to find this other lightweight plywood that I saw this guy Ron Pope use, but they don't sell it around here, so I gotta use what's available. Um, so anyway, I proceeded to cut that, and then I chopped it on my chop saw to the right width, um, because it's too hard to run something wide through the table saw, the way that little saw is set up. So it's easier just to chop it on the chop saw. Um, yeah, so I chop this piece, and then I proceed to take it over and check the measurements for my switch, and yeah, I got it. So the next step is to actually take this piece and mark and cut out the hole for the switch. Um, the remote switch is going to be nice because then you don't have to deal with reaching in and trying to turn on your router. Um, so I get the switch laid out where I want it, and I the dimensions looked good. So then I clamp it down. I like these kind of clamps. I mean, I I don't even know. I think they're just vice grips clamps. I used them. I had those clamps for a long, long time, and I used them mostly for doing concrete, where we would clamp the stakes to the form board before we would screw off the form board. But they're coming in real handy now. So now I drill 4 holes, and just to make it easier for jigsawing, I jigsaw the hole out, get it nice and clean, and make sure the switch fits in there. Once the switch is in, because it's going through a 3/4 inch sheet, I kind of have to I screw it off to the sheet, and then I mount a um, a box behind it. And actually, it worked out okay. I mean, it wasn't the I probably would have rather had a different kind of box in the back, but the way this type of switch is, right here, I took one of the Rockler hose adapters and just cut the crap out of it. Um, I kind of felt bad doing it, but it fits their fittings. So I wanted it to be easy to put the in piece on it, and I cut it out, and then basically I I drill holes all around the whole thing so that I can screw it off to this plywood and make it as airtight as possible. Um, yeah, it worked out pretty good, and actually it works great. I might do a little silicone on it later, but I haven't figured out if the airflow, if I even need to, you know, restrict the airflow that much in this box. So I proceed to I screw this whole thing down. There's about, I don't know, maybe 15 holes in this little plastic thing, but I screwed off the whole thing, and yeah, came out. It worked out pretty good. Actually, it wasn't. I thought it'd be harder to put these little screws in, but I just held them from underneath, and then screwed them in. Um, right here, I'm marking off because in the beginning, when I first designed this, I thought, I'll just put this box. I'll build this box, and I'll have a dust collection, inlet in it, and I'll just screw it off, and I should never have to go in there. But then, after watching a few other people do a few other ones, I realized this isn't the best way to do it. And even though I did install it all like this and I screwed it off, I ended up, it turned out really actually pretty nice. And even though it was, the only way to get in there was to unscrew it, it still looked really good. But I decided that that was not the way to go, even though it worked really well. I tested it out and it was working really well. But I realized right away that I need to be able to access that thing, and if I need to work on the router or anything, so I took it back off, and I ended up fixing up the electrical box a little better, and then I put hinges on the door so that I could open and close it real good and be able to get in there. And every once in a while it's good to be able to just pop it open and see if there's a lot of crap in there. So once I put the hinges on, I needed to put a couple stops so that when it closed, it had something to close up against, and So I cut a couple plywood stops, and yeah, I'm gonna work on dust collection on this chop saw next. But even though I got a 4-inch hose hooked up to it, watch, you still see a lot of dust coming. Look at you can see the dust flying off there. Anyway, once I get these stops screwed in, I'm amazed at how long I've had that Porter cable router that I put in that lift. I mean, it has to be over 25 years. Anyway, I mount these stops in and put one on each side. Now I close it. It works really well. It's nice and tight. Here I decide I had some walnut laying around, small pieces of walnut, so I cut some walnut trim, and I just wanted to dress up the front of the router, of the face of it, you know, because when you come down to my shop, that's kind of the first thing you see is that face of the bench. So I proceeded to trim it out with some really thin, I think they're like a 1/4 inch by 3/4 of walnut, and just to kind of dress it up a little bit. Even though it's my shop, that's kind of like my office. I like to go down there and, I want it to look good. So anyway, I dress it up a little bit. I shoot some of this walnut trim around it, and yeah, I'm just using some, I think they're 3/4 inch brad nails with a little Senko gun, I think. And yeah, it kind of makes it look a little better. I even put a little piece on each side. I was gonna, like, if you look just above, you'll see that plywood on the top. I was gonna put a piece up there, but I didn't have enough, and I didn't want to rip any more of the walnut, because walnut's real expensive. I mean, it's like shit for, I don't know, 3-inch wide, three quarter by 3 walnut. It's like $7 a foot or something. Anyway, that's the final look. It kind of looks cool, I think, and it works really well. Thanks for watching another episode of Outlaw Woodworking. I'm super happy with the dust collection. It really turned out good. I like the fact that you can get in it really easy and clean it out. And the suction seems to be pretty good. I actually added a hole at the back to add a little more air circulation for. Someone had mentioned that might work a little better. If you have any suggestions, leave them in the comments, but so far so good. So I have complete suction dust collection from underneath, and then I also have dust collection on my fence. So yeah, it's turning out really well, and yeah. Anyway, another long video. Later.